great to be here in person, right? And we also welcome those of you watching on live stream. Since this event is in our strange, new, online, in-person, hybrid world, those of you joining virtually, please bear with us, and those of you here as well. We hope you've been enjoying each other's company, the food, and the wines generously donated by Kurt Gulnick of Scheid Vineyards. Kurt is a past chair of the Community Foundation. Thank you, Kurt. And thank you to the Monterey Jazz Festival for the music. Please give a round of applause to all-star musicians, Gabe and Isaac de Vera. Thanks, guys. Joining us today are representing Congressman Jimmy Padilla, Susie Brusa, District 4 Monterey County Supervisor and Chair Wendy Root Askew, District 2 Monterey County Supervisor John Phillips, Seaside Mayor Ian Oglesby, Marina City Council Member Christina Medina Dirksen, and joining us online, District 1 Monterey County Supervisor Luis Alejo. Let's thank them all for their dedicated service to Monterey County. Now I'd like to recognize our current Community Foundation board members. Those of you that are here, will you please stand? Kirk, Bert, okay, Nolan. And if you would remain standing for just a heartbeat, are any past Community Foundation board members here? Please stand. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you all for your vision, commitment, dedication to our community. You know you can't have a strong community foundation without excellent leadership and teamwork. So I'd like to thank Dan Baldwin, President and CEO, and our outstanding staff. Thank you isn't really strong enough to express our gratitude for your exceptional efforts over the past 18 months. Could you all please stand and be recognized? Wave. Thank you. The mission of the Community Foundation is to inspire philanthropy and be a catalyst for strengthening communities throughout Monterey County. Today, we celebrate and thank you, our partners in philanthropy. Whether you give individually, as a part of a family or business, as a professional advisor, or are a nonprofit working to fulfill your mission, you help Monterey County be a better place. The accomplishments of the Community Foundation wouldn't be possible without your support. Last year in 2020, the Community Foundation marked its 75th anniversary, and despite the extreme challenges of COVID-19, wildfires, remote work, and more, thanks to you all, we met the moment. The board and staff reinforced our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in June 2020, the board approved an updated strategic plan and created a board staff work group to emphasize these principles. You inspire us. As your Community Foundation board and staff, we work diligently toward our vision of a healthy, safe, vibrant communities. I'm honored to serve as chair. We are truly here for good. Many of you serve on local nonprofit boards, so you know what's involved. You appreciate the demands, responsibilities, and rewards of board service. At each celebration of philanthropy, we recognize board members whose terms are ending. This year, we are recognizing Betsy Buckalter Adler, Bert Johnson Jr., and Bill Sharp. Betsy joined the board in 2015, starting in grants and programs, and later chair of the grants committee. She is currently serving as vice chair. She is a member of the Endowment Stewardship Committee, has chaired the governance committee, and chairs the Community Impact Committee, which oversees our grant making and special initiatives. Though she may be retired, and she will tell you that every time she has a point to make, her expertise as an attorney for Adler and Colvin brought considerable insight into many discussions. Through her role as trustee of the Claire Giannini Fund and now as a donor advisor with her husband Barry, Betsy has co-invested with the CFMC on many important initiatives. Betsy's joining us online tonight, so Betsy will give you this award when we meet in person. Our deepest thanks to you, and hopefully a hug when we get to see each other in person. Thank you, Betsy. Bert is the Foundation's immediate past chair, meaning he has served on every committee, and I'm going to list them for you. He previously chaired the Community Impact Committee and currently chairs the Governance Committee. His list of involvement includes governance, community impact investment, endowment stewardship, real estate advisory, executive, resource development, audit, investment, and finance. He was chair during that unforgettable year that was 2020 and is the champion for the board's renewed commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. His committed leadership and steady guidance made him a tremendous asset to the CFMC. We will miss you, Bert. Could you please come up? Bill Sharp. Bill has served on the investment committee since before joining the board in 2015, and it's our hope that he'll remain. Bill also served on a community impact grant committee and has been an invaluable voice for the stewardship of the Foundation's assets. Many of you know that Bill is a Nobel laureate in economics. Having someone of his remarkable stature on our board and investment committee led tremendous credibility to our work. Bill's humor and humility were a constant joy. Bill couldn't join us tonight, but we thank him for his service. Thank you, Betsy, Bert, and Bill, for your dedication and all you've done for the Foundation. We all joined the board at about the same time, and it's been a joy for me to get to know you. You will be missed, but hopefully not absent from future Foundation activities. So now I'd like to turn the program over to our President and CEO, Dan Baldwin. Thank you very much.
Well, this is fun, isn't it? I think we're all out of practice, aren't we? Getting together and trying to decide, should we hug? Should we fist bump? Should we just wave? But we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. It'll all come back to us, and it'll all be second nature. This is really a lot of fun for me to be here, to see all of you, to see all of the people who have helped make the Community Foundation what it is today. And I'm going to take a few minutes to sort of characterize that for you. I do want to, as Terry mentioned, I do want to give a shout out to Christine Dawson, our Senior Vice President for Philanthropic Services, and her staff for putting this event on today. The ability to be here in person, be able to do it outdoors, do it safely, and have a live stream at the same time. It's really created a great access. And I only had one responsibility, and that was the weather, and I think I did all right on that. But Christine did everything else. So, yeah, so thank you, Christine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've grown, what some of that has meant. It's also meant that we've had to expand our staff. We've had some retirements as well, so we have new people. But we haven't held an in-person staff meeting since March of 2020. And so this literally is the first time I'm seeing this group of people all together, and it's really quite remarkable and very fun. And the same is true for the board. We have not had an in-person board meeting since February of 2020, and so it's fun to actually, get to interact, and it feels human again. So I hope you're all enjoying it too. So on that note, I mean, obviously, 2020 was, and so far into 2021, has been a very different kind of experience for all of us. 2020 was actually the foundation's. This has never happened because we've always had these indoors. It's really not as long as this appears, by the way.
The pages.
Yeah. Is page 14 over there, Christine? So, 2020 was our 75th anniversary year. And we were able to start it, as we normally would, with our Legacy Society luncheon in February. And then 5 weeks later, we went into shelter in place. Rather than getting a year to celebrate, including a big celebration of philanthropy that we were going to have at the conference center a year ago, 2020 turned into a year like no other, but one that validated the critical role of the Community Foundation for Monterey County. If ever there was a proof of concept on what our founders had in mind in 1945, it realized itself in 2020. I don't like the reasons why, but somehow 2020 turned out to be a more satisfying way to celebrate our 75th anniversary than anything we might have planned. Our 2020 annual report, as Terry made reference to, was called Meeting the Moment. And we started to meet that moment very early on. We started the COVID-19 Relief Fund about March 20th of 2020. Laurel Lee Alexander, our Vice President for Community Impact, who's right there, she created grant criteria and guidelines for that relief fund in about 4 days. And we started making grants about 10 days later. That fund raised $4.3 million. Those monies came from our donor advisors, from the public, from businesses, from private foundation partners. The better news is that fund has granted $4.1 million so far. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bert. And that's gone for food insecurity, basic needs, rental assistance, PPE for healthcare providers, and a lot of grants that were made to help organizations assisting with the homeless and the most vulnerable during, just an extraordinary time. Philanthropy gave people hope. We do have government systems, and clearly there were large investments made at every level of government. But I like to think that the ability of philanthropy to be focused and nimble and respond, and without a lot of process, just be able to get those investments where they need to go to make the biggest difference. And I'm very, very, very proud of that. And it's probably the thing that drives me in my job as much as anything else, is the ability to be able to make that kind of impact. You might also remember, it seems like a long time ago, we had 3 fires burning simultaneously just about a year ago, about 13 months ago. So we were able to start actually 3 funds. One now is in place. I hate to say this, but this is where it's gotten. We now have a Monterey County Fire Fund that is sort of in perpetuity right now. And but we were able to provide support. We raised about $1.2 million through those funds last year, and really gave a lot of relief to families that were directly affected. Late last year, we formed the COVID-19 Collaborative, and that sounds like a mouthful, but there was just a need to create a table where hospitality, agriculture, education, healthcare, nonprofits, the public sector, and business could come together and work collaboratively to try to find solutions for, at that time, really just how we were going to get through, and how they were going to keep their doors open, and how we were then, originally make testing available and then make vaccinations available. And the collaborative is actually still ongoing. It's very active. It has about 55 people in it, and I'm very proud of it. And also the collaborative, its existence, helped form a partnership with the County of Monterey to create what we call the VITA program. And VITA, Virus Integrated Distribution of Aid, works with community health workers. And it created a cohort of about 10 nonprofits that were working in North County and the Village Project in Seaside and Marina, working in South County to try to get education, testing, and then ultimately vaccinations to people who maybe were from communities that had good historical reasons for being reluctant. The idea with the community health workers is that it's neighbor talking to neighbor. These people got trained through other grants that we received. We were able to equip them with tablets so they could do input right on the spot. They became navigators for the people that they're working with, encouraging them to get tested, encouraging them to quarantine, encouraging them to get vaccinated. So there are about 125 community health workers. I want to congratulate the Board of Supervisors for having the courage to make a $4.9 million commitment to this program. They partnered with us, and we were able to hire project managers to oversee the vaccination programs and the VITA workers. Again, there's a lot to be said for having trusted messengers going into neighborhoods, really. So if I went into some of the neighborhoods as sincerely as I might be, the reaction I may not have been welcomed or embraced, but to have neighbors talking to neighbors really moved the needle. We actually had a VITA event Sunday in Soledad where between COVID vaccinations and flu shots, 143 people got shots on Sunday. It was held at the McDonald's in Soledad. One of our donor advisors, Ray Costa, who's been actually giving out certificates for Big Macs for people who will get vaccinated, and so there was McDonald's. He's been extremely supportive. He let us set up in his parking lot. And that very act led one of our donor advisors to make a $10,000 grant into Ray Costa's scholarship fund to thank him for that. So this is just sort of how it all works together. But I don't know if you're all aware, but Monterey County has one of the highest vaccination rates in the state. Greenfield has the highest vaccination rate of any city its size in the country. And I can't stand here and say that, VITA is 100% responsible for that. But we were able to reach people who probably would not have gotten vaccinated otherwise. And so that means they're safer, their families are safer, their coworkers are safer, and our entire community is safer. So now all the while that was going on, we were doing our regular work. And we were putting our community impact grant program was going on. We were making scholarships, and we were, as a staff, were actually working remotely. So we actually went into remote work in late March of 2020, and we're not even yet fully back. And so all of this has been going on with a very dedicated group of people overcoming their own circumstances. So philanthropy in Monterey County really showed itself as a powerful force. In 2020, we granted $27.3 million. This was a record by $8 million. We had $1.8 million in scholarships. We had gifts. This is almost embarrassing to say. We had gifts of $58 million that came into the Community Foundation. We started 47 new funds. Thank you, Hansen. We started 47 new funds. We actually had somebody bring their fund agreement and check today to this event with their and brand new donor advisors. Monterey County Gives, our year-end campaign, we do in partnership with the Monterey County Weekly and the Monterey Peninsula Foundation. It broke all records in 2020, which was really, really surprising. And then, as Teri said, internally at the Community Foundation, the board and staff, just our entire organization, has really reinforced our commitment to equity and making Monterey County the most equitable community it could possibly be. But 2021 so far has been a continuation. So through September, remember I said that last year we set a record by $8 million. We granted $27.3 million in 2020. Through September 30 of 2021, so far this year, we've granted $29 million. So we've already surpassed that remarkable record last year. We always lead with grant making, but I always get asked about, like, what are your total assets? And so our total assets are in the range right now of about $375 million. So the expression of philanthropy in Monterey County as it's utilizing the Community Foundation, it's truly remarkable. And it bodes very well for our future as well. We are starting a new initiative with the James Irvine Foundation on inclusive economic development. The work with VITA continues. And we have tremendous board leadership, and that is going to continue. You know, to see Bert come up here, and it's nice. I mean, those are very nice, and you deserve every accolade, but, you know, 15 seconds description of what he's done over the last 6 years really doesn't really give full due to the work that you did and the work that, and he was my partner, especially in 2020. He would call me every Friday afternoon and just say, Dan, how can I help? And so that's the kind of board leadership, the kind of board involvement, the overall organizational involvement that helps make the foundation successful. So we did meet the moment in 2020, and we're meeting the moment again in 2021. But I'm here to tell you there's going to be more moments. Whether it's next year, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 25 years from now, there's going to be more moments. And when those moments occur, it's critical we have a robust, strong, nimble community foundation to be working every day to support nonprofits and the people of Monterey County. So thank you all very much. So I'm going to turn the mic back over to Teri, and while she makes her way up here, I just got to, Mel and Regina, this is just so important to me that you're here today. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Each year we honor an individual or couple who has demonstrated philanthropic leadership in our region. We call this honor the Distinguished Trustee. The Community Foundation for Monterey County is thrilled to recognize Mel and Regina Mason as the 2021 Distinguished Trustees. The Masons are a true force for good. They are committed to doing what's right. They show remarkable courage and commitment and command respect in all their dealings based on their expertise, integrity, and passion. One of the things we admire most about them is that they have shared their resources, time, and considerable talent to improve the lives of others. They share a passion for youth, mental health, and social justice. They have the courage to speak up and take action when they see something isn't fair or right. As Bert Johnson Jr. notes, in the African American community, it's common to seek out the wisdom of elders. People seek out the Masons for this role during moments of crisis or for emerging initiatives for their guidance and counsel. Mel grew up in Seaside. He was one of Monterey Peninsula College's greatest basketball players. While at Oregon State University on a basketball scholarship, he took a stand against racism there, which cost him his scholarship. This led him to a path of social activism that has characterized his life ever since. His mother told him, "Melvin, God has something else planned for you to do." She was right. Mel became an internationally recognized human and civil rights activist. In 1980, Mel was elected to the Seaside City Council. He ran for governor of California in 1982 and president of the United States in 1984. Mel has spoken in many parts of the world on behalf of human rights issues. Mel has a master's degree in social work from San Jose State University, and he had a long career as a counselor, therapist, and licensed clinical social worker. When his best friend, Charles Vaughn Sr., who suffered from schizophrenia, was killed by police, Mel and Charles Vaughn Jr. founded the Charles Vaughn Sr. Mental Health Police Practices Task Force, which helped create the Monterey County Crisis Intervention Academy. Mel became a life member of the NAACP and served 3 terms as president of its Monterey County branch, leading fights against police brutality, attacks on union, and job discrimination. Mel has co-founded and helped lead many organizations, including the Civil Rights Coalition of Monterey County. He also led a Black United Farms Workers Union support committee during the Great Lettuce Strike of 1970, and the Regional Alliance for Progressive Policy. He co-founded the Peace Council of Monterey County. Perhaps his proudest accomplishment is the Village Project, Inc., which he and Regina co-founded. The Village Project is an African-American-based family resource center designed to meet the unmet needs of the African-American community in Seaside. They serve all families unconditionally. Regina Mason, whom Mel calls the love of his life, is also a native of Seaside. It was instilled in her at an early age that one must give back to the community. Regina attended local public schools and graduated from MPC. She earned her undergraduate degree in business management from St. Mary's College and her master's degree in social work from San Jose State University. Regina retired as a child welfare supervisor with the County of Monterey. She has volunteered in her community for over 30 years, providing social justice advocacy work to people from all backgrounds, especially children and the elderly. She is a past president of the Monterey County branch and NAACP, past board member for the Seaside Sand City Chamber of Commerce, past commissioner for Monterey County's Commission on the Status of Women. She currently chairs the Poor People's Campaign for Monterey County. She was named the 27th Assembly District Woman of the Year by the Office of Assemblyman Bill Monning, received the Leadership Monterey Peninsula Award, the Community Partnership for Youth Honoring Youth Award, and the Democratic Women of Monterey County Award. As co-founder of the Village Project, Regina firmly believes that there is a direct correlation between culturally appropriate services and their impact on positive outcomes for those being served. Mel believes the founding of the Village Project is the fitting culmination of a life spent advocating for the oppressed, exploited, and disenfranchised people. Their decades of leadership have inspired and encouraged others. Ruth Watts, community leader and volunteer, says, "If we can help someone along the way, then our lives will not be in vain. The Masons have provided this to the community of Seaside and NAACP youth." Helen Rucker, retired school teacher, public servant, and longtime community activist, shared, "Whenever you hear about anything significant taking place in the city of Seaside, the Masons are involved. They put community first, frequently before themselves." Mel and Regina have numerous recognitions, including the Monterey Peninsula College President's Award and the KSBW Jefferson Award. Today, we are most proud to honor them as the Community Foundation for Monterey County 2021 Distinguished Trustees. Please join me in thanking and congratulating them for all they've done. Mel and Regina, would you join me on stage, please? Got this award for you, and if you would go ahead and take that, and we'll get a real quick photo. Yeah, you can go set that down. And in addition, we have some certificates of special recognition that you can just leave here and grab later from U.S. Congressman Jimmy Panetta and the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. And take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Teri, for that wonderful introduction. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Community Foundation Board of Directors for this incredible honor on this afternoon. We are so pleased and humbled to be accepting this award for the work that we love doing in our community and in our county. I also want to say that we could not do this work alone. Along the way and along the journey that we've traveled, there have been numerous people by our sides, and all of our staff, our board members, and we have our board chair here today, Charlie Brown, and also our board member emeriti, Ann Jealous, and other family and friends and those that are joining us via live stream. I'd also like to say that our staff at the Village Project have been enormous in terms of getting our work done and standing by our sides and making all that we do possible on a day-to-day basis. I know that we have a limited time, and I have 18 points I wanted to make, but I see that my wonderful husband has a four-pager that he wants to say. But at any rate, but one of the things I want to talk about is the fact that we are so honored that the Community Foundation has bestowed this honor on us. And I have to say that since the Village Project's existence, the Village Project or the Community Foundation has helped us immensely. We were recipients of the Community Leadership Project. Mel and I are both service providers. We're both social workers at heart. And so the work we do is direct service to community. However, we have been grant writers. We've been just anything and everything that you can imagine to keep our small grassroots nonprofit happening and afloat. And so without the Community Foundation, they have given us so many wonderful grants that have helped our children in our community. And when COVID hit, we thought, okay, this is it. It's time to, wrap it up. However, good old Community Foundation came to our rescue in terms of helping we had over 35 families that were impacted with food insecurity, rental assistance, not being able to go to work, and just so many other things that were happening to people that were living in our community. And so without the Community Foundation and other wonderful people like Fred Jealous, who has just been stellar in terms of Whites for Racial Equity, standing by our side, helping to raise money, all of the fundraisers that we've done to ensure that our organization is able to function every day. And so I also want to talk about a little bit about the NAACP, because that is where I began a lot of my community activism. I became the youth advisor for the NAACP Youth Council. And so for 25 years, we held a youth summit providing backpacks, school supplies, workshops, and so on and so forth to many of the young people in the community. And that went on up until COVID happened, where there was no youth summit. And so they had virtual backpack giveaways, and people came and picked up backpacks at our offices. And so the Youth Council is still carrying on that tradition for underserved young people in our community. The other thing that happened that is so significant in our agency is we have an after-school academy, and it is named after Mae C. Johnson, who was one of our first board members. And when children and families were coming to receive therapy, some of the kids were falling through the cracks academically in terms of not being able to meet grade level. And she basically helped us start this after-school academy, and it's now 10 years old, and we have had tremendous outcomes. Kids that are in college, we've had kids that got into York. We just had a new student this past couple of weeks get into York, and those kids are going on to graduate from high school, going to college. I also see my wonderful son sitting in the audience, and he was actually a tutor right after he graduated from UC Merced in our after-school academy, and he has too made a lot of sacrifices and committed to giving back to community in that way. And then the other people that I want to talk about are the NAACP President, and she and Akira's Book Club. When I found out that this award came with a monetary component, I was thrilled because we got to select two organizations that would receive the monetary award. And so we're splitting that award today with the Monterey County branch NAACP, which is going to be turning 90 years old in February, and Akira's Book Club. And Akira's Book Club, Akira is this wonderful little girl whose grandmother is here with us, and she started this book club, and it has so many wonderful books that teach children literacy. It has nouns, antonyms, synonyms, and Grace Carroll she's a PhD out of Stanford, but she's also an alumni of Seaside High's first graduating class and was class valedictorian. And so she's from our community, but Grace, we have a project called Imanyatta Saturday School. And Imanyatta Saturday School is for children of African ancestry, grades K through 4th grade. And it is a research project out of the Office of Health Equity at the State of California. And we are in year 5. And so Grace is our local evaluator. However, she is way more than an evaluator. She has helped to make our Imanyatta Saturday School what it is today. We've seen children come in kindergarten who are now 5 years older, and those children are able to go up and do public speaking. They know all about their ancestry. When parents come to see their children learning and speaking publicly, they cannot believe it. It is just an incredible thing that is happening. So my last comment about my portion, before I hand this over to Mel, is that the Imanyatta project is this 5-year research-based project. What we're doing is defining we have evidence-based practices that are community-defined. And there are 35 other organizations throughout the state of California that are embarked in this project. They come from 5 underserved groups of people: LGBTQ+, the Native American, the API, the Latinx, and the African Americans. And so they are all defining what it means to have best practices in each of their various projects. And so the Office of Health Equity has provided us with technical assistance providers to ensure that we have what we need around just making sure that all of our evaluation data and anything else that we need to sustain our organization is going to be able to move forward. And so I basically just want to uplift that project, because now all 35 of us through this pandemic got together and we lobbied the senators and assemblymen, and now we have a 4-year extension, $63 million more to ensure that our children are going to be able to learn their cultural heritage. For us, our children, because that's who we're working with. And I am going to just leave you with this thought. There is a wonderful psychologist by the name of Asa Hilliard III. And one thing that our young people say every Saturday when they come to Eminata Saturday School, and their little ritual is, I am the child of my parent, the hope of my grandparents, and the legacy of my ancestors. Let's go forth and be the best we can be. Ashe.
That's it. Ashe. Thank you. Thank you, Regina. Great. And Teri did such a good job of, of really talking about both Regina and myself. So I don't have to follow this outline very much anymore. So that actually feels pretty good. And also, I would like to thank the Board of Directors of the Community Foundation for Monterey County for presenting us with this award. We do a lot of work, and we don't kind of do the work to get awards. So when somebody does present us with one, it's among other things, it's embarrassing. I used to accept basketball awards with a lot less embarrassment. Dan. But believe me, this is really an auspicious award. I think the term "distinguished" really defines it. And both Regina and I were here when Secretary Leon Panetta and Sylvia, who are good friends of ours, received this award. We were also here when Judge Lydia Villarreal received this award, and she's also a good friend. And they're also supporters of the Village Project as well. Our board chair has been introduced, and I'm going to introduce some other people. I'm glad that Ruthie, you and Yvonne, and I think Helen is gone, but that you all were introduced as well, because you all have been mainstays and really keys to our community, to its well-being, and to its ongoing health. And so to recognize you is absolutely important to do. But before I kind of get into my talk, there's generally a time for a brief moment of levity, and Dan is here. And here's what's happening. We met Dan when he first came here, a number of years ago. And Dan, I think Dan and I and Regina, we're all good friends on top of the fact that we're colleagues. But from the beginning, Dan couldn't resist this urge, I guess, to tell me that I should be glad that he wasn't out here playing basketball against me. Because as he said, Mel, I would have given you my 100%. And so I didn't know if I was supposed to tremble or what, But I generally never had a comeback, because I didn't I didn't really feel like talking about basketball anymore, but Dan kept bringing it up. And I think the last time that we were together, in the big room, we had the Stanford alumni consulting team that was working with us to help enhance our, administration and just our whole agency's way of delivery. And so we were all sitting in the room, and Dan was on the Zoom, on the screen, and he could not resist talking about this 100%, and that I should be glad that he wasn't around here when I was playing ball, and if he had played ball against me, that this horrible 100%, I guess would have done me in or something. So I thought, okay, and I'm glad that you didn't do it tonight, Dan, but here's what I'm going to do, since we got all these folks. When I was in high school and college, there were a lot of guys that gave me their 100%. I'm in 2 halls of fame, and I don't know where these guys are. Okay, I couldn't resist it, man. I couldn't resist. Okay, but also before I speak, I wanted to recognize some folks who were and are really vital parts of my life, and one of the persons, he couldn't be here. I think he's on live stream, and his name is George Al Jr. Some of you may know him. But he is a person who epitomizes philanthropy, and a person with whom I have enjoyed a friendship since our freshman year at Monterey Union High School 65 years ago. George and I have been friends for 65 years. He is a big supporter of our agency, the Village Project, and he's just an all-around good friend. But the other thing that George kind of reminds me of, because sometimes we go to lunch, and I'll say, okay, it's my turn. He goes, no, that's okay, Mel. He said, I chose to get rich. And I said, okay, well, then I guess I chose to be whatever in the heck I am. And then I let him buy lunch. But George is a philanthropist. He has given money to the Santa Cruz County NAACP. He's given countless, I don't know how many millions of dollars worth of scholarships for students of color. At Cabrillo College, if you go there, there's a big bust of Dr. Martin Luther King. He paid for it and had it done. He just goes on, and now his kids are allegedly taking over the family enterprise. He still, I think, hangs around there and stuff. Probably they don't want him around, but he's still there. He built this place, and so he's a really good friend. And I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned him. So George, if you're out there watching, I did mention you, brother. And also, and I really did play basketball. And tonight, we talk about, as Regina did, about how it takes a team of people to do the work that we did, because there's no way in the world that myself or her or either of us together could have done some of the things that have happened, like the Village Project and other things that we've been involved in. But we talk about team. And so I go back 55 years to when I last played basketball. And there were 2 guys especially who were teammates of mine. They were supportive. I think one of them used to get me the ball a lot. I think the 2 of them probably made me look a lot better than I actually was. But they actually personified and also gave me a look into the future when we started talking about working with teams to bring about social change. That the foundation for that started with these 2 guys, and supporting me and us each other. Some people call us the 3 amigos, and some people call us the 3 something elses. But I just want to introduce to you these 2 men who mean the world to me, and that's Randy Reynolds and William Jody Gully. I want you guys to stand up. And also their significance. See, us guys that are married, we're the other. But their significance, Sarah and Jeanette. I want to introduce you, the two of you as well and stuff. Love you much. Okay. And as you know, Bill Monning, he's not here, and I think he's live streaming. He and Dr. Dana Kent, they're live streaming somewhere. But I wanted to just give a shout out to Bill because, he used to be our state senator. He's retired. Bill and I, it's okay to clap. He's a heck of a guy. But Bill and I started being friends in 1980. And over the years, we were involved in all kinds of movements. And I think, Teri, you captured one. And when I talk about Bill, either to his face or to other people, I often say, there are activist exploits that we can talk about publicly. And he says, yeah. But again, the concept of team came into play because what Bill and I were involved in, it also involved so many other activists. And as Teri pointed out, we created something called the Regional Alliance for Progressive Policy. There were people who loved us and then the people in power who hated us. We spoke out against police brutality. We spoke out certainly against Border Patrol. We ended up with the Border Patrol in our focus all the time because the Border Patrol was putting itself in our focus all the time with its attacks, its racist attacks on immigrants, especially Mexican immigrants. And so we took them on. There were times when we used to line up in front of the place. They had a place over here in Salinas, and they would come in. There was only one driveway, and we blocked it for days. So I don't know what they did, but where they slept. Maybe they slept in their cars. I don't know. But what we did eventually was to help shut down the Border Patrol office in Salinas, and I think that was a great act of philanthropy. When I was president of our NAACP branch, Bill had volunteered as our branch's legal advisor and was also a part of the founding of the Civil Rights Coalition of Monterey County that Teri talked about. So Bill and Dana, just giving you a shout out. Hope that you're enjoying these festivities as we are. And then, of course, Bert, who just, man, you seem like you're going to be the person of the hour here. Bert Johnson, but I've known Bert since he was a youngster. Bert was also past vice chair of our board of directors at the Village Project, and he's also past chair of the Monterey Peninsula College Foundation, most immediate chair of this August board of directors here, the Community Foundation. And all of this and the other things that you do epitomize philanthropy at the highest level, brother, and so thank you for all you do. The final note of philanthropy, there's a young man in the audience, his name is Reginald Garnett, and I bring him up because, yes, I knew him when he was a youngster. I actually helped coach him when he was at Monterey Peninsula College a number of years ago. But Reggie went on to get an MBA from UCLA, worked in the big corporate world for a long time, and then when he retired, he decided to come back to Seaside. And one of the first things he did when he got back to Seaside was come over to the Village Project and to volunteer, to be our budget analyst, finance person, you name it. If it had anything to do with money, Reggie was there, and we wanted him there. And he has been such a great boon to our agency. And you're talking about volunteering, you're talking about philanthropy, and Reggie is, again, another person that's an epitome of that. Where's Reggie? Okay, you're taking pictures, okay. And not to go on too long, but it's real important to reflect, and certainly for me to reflect, on where this journey began. And you're right, Teri, my mom did tell me a number of times what God had planned for me. And when the first time she told me, because she had to come get me because she was afraid I was going to get into some more trouble, and she came up to her and my cousin drove to Oregon State University to get me, and she told me to stay in the house. But on the way back was the first time that she told me, God has something else for you to do. And at that time, my mom was real religious. and so I couldn't say anything. I couldn't say what I was feeling. I couldn't say what I was wanting to do with God. If God had something to do with this, then me and God was going to have to get it on or something. But I couldn't say that because but I was upset. And but what she said kept telling me over time was that no, this wasn't it. What she said that basketball did for me was it got me out of some bad ways that I had started living. And so it kind of put me on the straight and narrow as much as I could have ever been at that time. Okay, thank you very much. But that then prepared me for the next leg of the journey. And the next leg of the journey involves social justice, fighting against racism, struggling, for equality, and working on behalf of people, who had been historically disenfranchised, underserved, unserved, inappropriately served, disserved. That was the calling, and I kind of felt it. But I reflected back on where it began, and I was born in Kentucky, a place called Providence, and I had the fortune of not only having the mom that I did and the pair of grandmothers that I did, but I had a great grandmother, and her name was Frances Woolfolk. And she was half African and half Cherokee. I met her. She came to stay with us because she had gotten pretty old. She was 96. I was 4. And she died when I was 8, and she was 100. But she was the first person that talked to me and told me about Harriet Tubman, about Nat Turner, who was her hero for some probably obvious reasons. Frederick Douglass, and other luminary black folks who were fighting against slavery and fighting for equality. She was the first one that taught me that. And so she taught me to always make sure that I understood and expressed my identity. And what she impressed upon me was that, boy, you are black and Cherokee. And so I carried that with me. She said, you've got to be proud of being both. She also took pride in being what she said was a horrible slave. They couldn't get her to do anything. And when the overseers tried to whip her and stuff, she tried to take the whip away from the overseers and whip them with it. So she took pride in that. She also, because my great-grandfather, who was her husband, was also one of the slave masters' other children. Okay. And so, as a result, when the slave masters got disenfranchised, somehow and for some reason, they gave a lot of land to my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather. The Night Riders came to take back land, and give it, either take it themselves or give it back certainly to some white people. And one day she was telling me that the Night Riders showed up, and they had on hoods or sacks or pillows or something with eyes in it. And they drove up, and they rode up on their horses, and she said that the guy that was obviously the leader had told her, a nigger woman, get off this property. And she said, okay. She said, I have something for you, and I just need to go inside the door here to get it and stuff, And it was a double-barrel shotgun. So when she came out, she had the gun, and so she pointed it at the guy, and so the guy, she said, laughed at her. Said, you think you can kill all of us? Because, that's 20 of us. She goes, no, but I think I can kill you. And she said, Melvin, she said, I don't think the man was ready to die. So they took off. So that was my great-grandmother, Frances, and so I've always taken a lot of pride in being her great-grandson. And one of the things that I did this past summer was that I went to a place called Cherokee, North Carolina. And because my great-great-grandmother, her mother, had been kidnapped as a girl from a village and had been taken into slavery, in Kentucky, where I was born. And when I got there, some of the elders showed me where they thought that her village was that she got kidnapped from. And from that point forward and stuff, I felt like she and my great-grandmother were with me all when I was in Cherokee. I was there for a few weeks. And I don't think I went to sleep while I was there. It was such an experience. For the elders, they didn't think it was a big thing. They just said, well, this is just your great-grandmother and her mother welcoming you home. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal for me was it was kind of eerie, but it was an experience. So I think when I look at those things and look at this kind of trail or this path that culminated with me meeting Regina. And I have to talk about that because you're right. Regina's the love of my life, and I don't mind you all knowing that. She really is, and she's added so much to me. And it's been so great, it's been so great just being your partner. It really has. And I think that we've done so much together and stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do any of the things that we've done if I didn't have you. So I just want you to know that. And so I will wrap this up. This month, those of us who were members of the Black Panther Party are celebrating the 55th anniversary of the founding of the party. And some people will say that the Village Project has the stamp of the Black Panther Party on it. Well, it certainly has me. And I think that a lot of what we are doing has really been influenced by what the Black Panther Party had done. And while people have all kinds of images of us, the image that they don't have is the one of community service and community survival. And the free medical clinics. I had never heard of sickle cell anemia before until I joined the Black Panther Party. The sickle cell anemia was something that was impacting and killing primarily black people. But they set up free medical clinics where people could go and not pay anything. It didn't matter whether you had insurance or not or anything like that. It was free medical care. We're still dealing with free medical care issues today, right? Well, the Black Panther Party had that. And certainly we know about the free breakfast for children program. We know about maybe the free legal program, the free clothing program, being able to transport people to prison so that they can see loved ones. All of those things were things that the Black Panther Party had done. And of course, we made sure that the police were supposed to be behaving the way that they were supposed to be behaving. And so we followed them and we did other things that were actually within the law to do at that time. So the Black Panther Party was a real example for a lot of us in terms of how we take control of our lives and how we take control of our communities for the betterment of ourselves and our communities. And I can't stop without talking about a good friend of mine. His name was Romaine Chip Fitzgerald. Chip was 19 when he was incarcerated. This was part of the counterintelligence program, SWEEP. Chip just recently died after being in prison for 51 years for a crime that he didn't commit. We were struggling for many, many years to get him out. At one point, he was at Salinas Valley State Prison, and I used to go see him every Saturday. He almost died from some medical issues and stuff in prison, and we fought to get him good medical care and all of that. But we couldn't stop what turned out to be the inevitable. And we still have about 6 other comrades who are in prison that we're struggling to get out. There were about 40 of us that were killed. And so as we're thinking about this commemoration of the 55th anniversary, we also have to think about the comrades that we lost, and they were a lot. And so, but they didn't die for no reason. They died for a reason. And I think that the Village Project is one of those reasons. To be able to have the wherewithal to put together something like the Village Project, that's about that legacy. We don't have the Panther symbol on anything, but we don't need to have it. What we have is the operation itself. Regina pointed out about the after-school academy. What I'd like to say is that when we put together the academy, Mae Johnson was on our board. Mae was also one of my second mothers when I was growing up. And she was the one that would always ask me if I was being a good boy. And I would always say yes, whether that was true or not. But May was on our board, and she was the one that really pushed for us to have this kind of a program. And as Regina pointed out, we had some youngsters who came in to that program who couldn't read and write. One of them is at Spelman College in her third year. We had 3 other youngsters just recently graduated from York School because we have a partnership with York. And all of them were 4.0 students, valedictorians, and one of them was actually the president of the student body. But they could barely make it when they were in our program. So that's just a testimony to that program that we put together in May's name. And then when we talk about Eminyata, again, that reflects back to me on my grandmother, my great-grandmother, Frances. Always know who you are and always tell people proudly who you are. This is what they do. Eminyata is a Maasai word. It means warriors camp. And what we have developed is a warriors camp of learners. And but the other thing is that they learn their true history. They learn where they came from. They learn where the first empires were. They learn who the first kings and queens were. They learn where human life actually began, and it was in Africa. And so when you ask them to identify themselves, they say, I am African. And that's it. I am African, because of the pride that they take in being African. And what we've been proving with that program is that true identity, in this case certainly amongst African ancestry youngsters, means that they're going to have good mental health because they know who they are, and there's such a strength in identity when you know who you are. And so we don't worry about them like we worry about some of the other young folks that we don't have any contact with. And so we have other programs as well. I know I've gone way over my time and stuff. Thank you for being so patient with me. But when we start talking about the Village Project, it's a little bit. We have a program called Inyumbani, which means returning home. It's a prison reentry program with almost zero recidivism, with everybody either working, going to school, or a combination of both. But folks are not going back to jail and not going back to prison. We have a group called One Circle. And the way that group came about was about 3 years ago, there was a blow up at Seaside High, a blow up on campus. And it was between African American and Latinx youth. Well, out of that came a group called One Circle. And it's called One Circle, and that's what they named it, was because they saw themselves as one family. They're black and brown, but they're one family. And so there's a circle with black and brown hands in the middle, clasping each other. They greet each other as brothers and sisters, and they're no longer rivals. And so this is a model for what we can be doing, out here. It requires street work, it requires campus work, and all of that. There's a gentleman by the name of Ron Manharis who does this work for us. We had a community warm line. People used to call because they needed to talk to somebody about how to get through the pandemic. They were suffering from anxiety and depression, some real serious clinical issues at some point. And so we were able to do that. Then the pandemic of the police killing black people happened, George Floyd, et cetera. And so we spun that out into something called Black Space. And that's been going on ever since. And so every Monday at noon, people come and do that, and participate. There's no agenda other than people just coming and talking to each other and getting support from each other. And so we just had, those are just some of the programs. I don't want to go into all of them. One thing that did happen was that the Maasai came to Seaside to visit the kids and the families their first year that we had the program, because they heard that there were some people in Seaside that were using one of their institutions to teach our children. So just to give you that kind of breadth of our agency, I thought was really important. And if I could, I just want to end with some quotes about philanthropy. And I'll start with Malcolm X, who said, "Only those who have had a revolution within themselves can reach out effectively to others." And then Maya Angelou, who knew Malcolm and was influenced by him, had 3 quotes that jumped out at me. She said, "I learned that you can't get through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You have to have one hand free to throw something back. I have found that among other benefits on giving back, giving liberates the soul of the giver. And thirdly, when you learn, teach. When you get, give." And finally, from one of my favorite poets of all time, Langston Hughes, he said, "Good morning, revolution. You are the best friend I ever had. We're going to pal around together for a real long time to come." And finally, when we think of the village, of the Community Foundation for Monterey County and the Village Project, we're thinking about 2 organizations that are about hope and dreams. And just like we've had to fight our way into existence and help so many turn their hope into reality, we will continue to function under the premise stated in an old African proverb which says, "The difficulties and struggles of today are but the price we pay for the accomplishments and victories of tomorrow." Ashe. Thank you.
Okay, well deserved. Nicely done, very nicely done. So, the distinguished trustee honorees are given $10,000 to grant from the Community Foundation to the nonprofits of their choice. And as Regina said, the Masons have chosen NAACP Monterey County Branch and Akira's Book Club in Oakland. So I think we need Yvonne Thomas and Dr. Grace Carroll to come on up and get their checks.
All right.
So I'm very pleased to announce that the Community Foundation will be announcing a $50,000 anonymous grant to Village Project. And this is in recognition for all of their work with the VITA project and specifically their efforts in getting the vaccines out. So congratulations. Right? Man, it's so well-deserved. Your work is so good. Okay, so that is it.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all.